Yes, so excited to introduce, this is Ana Salgado, and she is the Director of Customer Insights at Georgia Pacific. So I'm going to turn it over to her because I know she'll do a much better job of explaining her job and her company and what they do better than I could. So I'll let you take it.
Okay, well, good morning. Thank you, everybody. Happy last day before you go into Easter weekend. So I'm gonna try to make it short and entertaining. Feel free to interrupt me and ask questions. That doesn't bother me at all. I work for a company called Georgia Pacific. If you basically have any time being on a car and look at a building that says GP on a triangle going on downtown Atlanta, that's the company that that I work for. And what we do is building products. And I know that sounds very interesting, but let me just show you a couple of things in here. This one, okay. Let me know when you all can see my screen.
I see a white screen.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right.
Okay. So in a way, like I'm going to explain to you first what my company does, and then I'm going to go into what I do to help my company kind of deliver on products. So how many of you, and you can just show your hands, have been to the Georgia Aquarium? You can see one hand. Okay. A few hands, perfect. So when you go to the Georgia Aquarium, you enjoy, and it's like nice weather inside the building all the time, and you can see all of these different marine life having a great time and living there full time. And the building looks beautiful on the outside, but have you ever stopped and wonder what is behind the beautiful things that you see that make this building stand tall, that make the AC be 70 something degrees inside the whole time so you're not too cold or too warm at all times, or if there is a risk of a tornado or a fire, knowing that you are safe and that you can get out of the building. And that's basically what my company does, is to think about those aspects that go behind the beautiful things that you see on the building that helps your structures, if you will, be non-combustible, or in a case like allow for firefighters enough time to come here to put out the fire and to make everybody out in a safe way. So we help prevent fire. We also help prevent, I would say, weather conditions, whether it's moisture or water, to affect some of the building foundation and make the building last for years. And we also help with what we call air tightness, which is makes your buildings energy efficient. So if you think about your home where you live in, or any of the buildings that you go to, you need like the AC that you're paying for electricity to stay inside your house. You don't want the hot air or the very cold air to come inside your house. So we help with our materials prevent kind of that air to come in or go out and escape and make your energy bills basically higher than they should be. And we also provide what we call the strength, or we call it load bearing, which is the ability of your building to stand tall and to as much decorations that you want to put into this building, that the building is able to withstand all of that weight and not cave in. So that's what our products do. Our products do that for all sorts of different buildings in the marketplace. So we are present in residential constructions. This is kind of your condos, your apartments, the homes that you live in. We help provide all of those different protections. We also do that if you think about you guys that are in school today, like if you look up and you look at your roof, you can see the roof ceiling. But if you think about what's on top of that roof and is preventing birds from coming in or extreme weather from coming in, like our products play a part in keeping the roof on your head, like basically like just to stand there and not fall on you. And then we have your commercial walls, which is when you go to the movies or you go to the mall, and you basically touch on those walls on the inside and those walls on the outside. We provide all of those materials that go in there. Let me stop right there and see if you guys have any questions. Okay. So we have a few different brands. Like if you have like basically been with your parents or friends and you are driving across the city, our most common color of material is this yellow, which we call gold in construction. And our brands are called dense glass, which is basically made of a very like thick stone, which is what provides the fire and kind of that wind resistance. And then we put a coating of glass on it, which would help you also to make it more fire resistant. So then when the fire hits it, and I'm gonna show you a video later, um, basically it prevents like the materials from burning, and that allows for people to get outside the buildings when a fire happens, or to the firefighters to come inside the building and do their job safely. So then that's a little bit about my company and the products, but then you will say, well, Anna, what does a customer insights person does, right? And so basically like the easiest way to explain what a customer insights role is to say that we are researchers. So there are very different types of researchers in the world, right? So the most common ones are like the ones like Bruce Banner that is in a lab and like does all of these beautiful things and like plays with like gamma radiation and like becomes the Hulk. But I don't necessarily become the Hulk, but I am a researcher. I just don't wear a lab coat or I'm not in a lab. But I do talk to people, like many people almost every day. I talk to those people who put like the materials and are like working with like drills and with hammers and like understanding how they use our products, to kind of the very visionary people that create these beautiful buildings and design them, so I can try to understand how are they using these products, what type of buildings are they designing, and what are the needs that we're trying to meet, and what are the troubles that they're finding. I also create questionnaires. So if you were to think about how your teachers do the quizzes for you, I would do some version of that quiz, but I would send it out to the marketplace, and I actually have to pay people in order for them to give me answers about information that I want for the products that I want, whether it is we are building a home or we are building a mall, just to understand how they're using the products. And then I put together all of that data into nice charts or a nice story or a nice like paper or essay. And then I also look at things that are going out in the marketplace. We call this third-party research, meaning I don't necessarily conduct it, but there are companies out there that are experts in like looking at what's going on in the Middle East or what's going on in Europe, and how, say, sustainability and global warming is affecting the buildings and the homes. So I put all of these three things together that you see on screen, and I create stories and I create recommendations for our company that can either help us create totally new products, that can help us, say, improve the products that we currently have in the marketplace to have better performance. And so then at the end, what that does for us and for our brands is to have brands that our customers in the industry, whether it's an engineer or an architect or a consultant, they love my brand and they want to recommend my brand and buy my brand. Do we have any questions there? Let me stop right there.
No, ma'am.
Perfect. Okay, so then I know that that sounds like very high level. So I wanted to provide you with an example of how to then, okay, so I get that you look at all of this data, so that's how that really comes to life, right? So I would, like, how many of you have seen, or maybe in the news, and you look in YouTube videos and look at these big tornadoes or like hail that is the size of a baseball now? Right? So that's becoming more and more common, because what we know is that our weather patterns are changing a lot, and people from Texas all the way to Minnesota are like having more and more tornadoes. Like even in Tennessee, or like wasn't one like last week in Alabama, and like we have like a lot of these different weather conditions, and it's becoming worse. So if you think about it, like our roofs in here, in this case, suffer a lot because when you have tornadoes and when you have hail, the first defense for your building or your home is your roof, right? So then if your roof basically falls, then the whole building is falling. That's basically how it goes. So then we started looking at weather patterns becoming worse and worse. The damage in the roof are becoming more expensive to repair. I think that our National Weather Service has calculated that weather events in the US cost us north of $2 billion a year just in repairs to the buildings. It's like very expensive. It's becoming very expensive per event, meaning if you have one hurricane, at least you're spending that amount of money. So if you had 13 or 14, you have like a lot more money that we're putting into it, right? So it's a very expensive problem and a lot of people risk their lives because of that. And then we started to talk to experts in the industry and people like you that like basically your parents that own homes or people that own commercial buildings and office buildings and noticing that this was a very big need. So then we put together a solution on a roofing panel that I would say looks like that little white little piece here. If you see the gray here on the bottom, that would help you provide more strength to your roof so then the roof doesn't suffer as many damages. And that's when we launched this product that is called Dense Deck Storm X. So it's a very big, thick panel that can resist hail as big as a baseball without having any damage, which is unique in the industry today. Then it helps with the water resistance. So if you think about like when we have like pouring down rain, rain stays within the top of your building until it dries. So this product has additional resistance for that. And then it also has like basically like you need something that can withstand when the hail falls, it kind of creates a puncture into the roof. So it helps with that. So it has all of these characteristics in order to provide better protection for people. And because of all of the conversations that I had, looking at the data that we had and going and testing this product in real-time situations just to see how it performed, we were able to launch that product. So my role in that is just to help people understand what is the need in the marketplace. And then I pass that to basically engineers that create the recipe of this product based on the information that I provide them. Was that a long, complex explanation, Holly, or was that easy to understand?
That's a great explanation. Yeah, can you tell us more about like if somebody was like, hey, I want to do what her job is, what kind of like training or education goes into this?
So it depends on, there are some people that have different trains of education. So I went to school and I did business degree first. And then I did internship doing what we call marketing insights, which is you start like talking more like to people and like trying to understand stories and just doing that portion, not a lot to do with numbers and Excel files. And then I transitioned to that. There are some other people that do something that we call data analysis or data science, which is you go to school, and I think Georgia Tech is pretty good for that as well. And so they go and they create mathematical models that you can apply, and they use a lot of these different programs. They use Alteryx, or we have all other sorts of programs like Excel-based type programs where you create different calculations or different regression analysis that can provide you with that information. So there is certainly not a one path to get to these, but I would say you would like to be a person that likes to talk to people, to like to talk to strangers. That doesn't mean that you have to be an extrovert, because I am not, but you will have to kind of put on like a hat of, I'm gonna go talk to this strange person and ask all of these questions and be okay with feeling a little bit weird about like on the inside and like just having the conversation. And then you will have to like some numbers, because you have to have the ability to take all of this information and put it into kind of like very few words for the people that you work with and try to translate that from a regular person to an engineer or a scientist that is creating this.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And we've got a couple, I think some of our classes in here are math classes right now. So are you able to speak at all to, yeah, like what math looks like? I know you mentioned some like data and so these mathematical models, like what that looks like in your job.
Yeah, so we, for me specifically, like my focus is in different modeling that can help us understand when we look at our brands, right? And I'm gonna, or maybe like a TV program, let's say something like that. Like, how do you know that people are gonna love what you put out there before you put it out there? So we call that leading indicators. So like, how do I take models basically, or how can I create a model? So a model could be as simple as, do I take sales, calculated sales? Do I know what my share is today? And then I calculate some sort of like correlation analysis that can help me understand how I can deliver sales. So that's very simple, like in its simplest form, how to explain that. Then if I want to understand after I put my product out there, what the performance is, meaning looking at lagging indicators that can help me understand basically possible outcomes for the future based on history. So I take historic data and extrapolate that data so I can predict the future. So there is some predictive analytics into it. And then there are some foundation analytics that can try to, that are geared towards creating a range of outcomes, if you will. So it could be very basic modeling to very complex codes that you have to do in order for you to create those analyses. I don't know if that explains your question.
Yeah, no, I think that explains it. And if teachers or students also have questions, you guys are welcome to unmute or put stuff in the chat as well.
I have a question. And I apologize if you might have already answered this somewhat, but what kind of skills that, say for a math student, that you would need to be able to do your job, like what they're doing right now in their math classes or in their high school classes that you think really are applied to what you're doing?
So I say like it, and I apologize because I really don't know how much more, like I think that they are so much smarter than when I went to school because it seems very more complicated today. But I think that it'll be valuable not only to like know the regular things, like the regular, like how can I derive like an angle from some geometric figure, but also like if you have computer skills that you're learning, how do I learn very well to use all of these different functions that Excel has built up? That would be a foundation. Like, how do I use count? How do I use a what if analysis? Because a lot of those things that are somewhat math related and help you with the numbers, like understanding those relationships and what the data tells you at the end is very valuable, especially now that almost everything is computer based.
Yeah, for sure. Just like knowing how to do those calculations so you can be able to plug it into that Excel.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Cool. Any other questions from the crowd? Ms. Salgado, did you mention you had a video for us? Or?
Yeah, I did. I want to show you a couple of things. Let me move this here so I can bring into context some of the performance. So I think fire is one of those that we always say, like, people think that their building doesn't catch fire until it does, which is totally true. But this is basically what our products do. So this is just one test for you guys to see, like, what, like, when you think about just talking to people or just like looking at some data, at the end of the day, it is not just to look because we want to look at it, but it's because you at the end want to deliver products that can keep people safer, right, in situations. So like in this case, what we're doing, when you think about sheet rock, when you get home today, or maybe in your school, if it's not made of cement block, you can basically knock on a wall and it'll sound like hollow. So that's because it's like drywall or sheetrock. So that's kind of the material that you're seeing. This is the front of it and this is the back of it. So this is one of the fire tests that we do. And you can see here that it's showing you like how it's looking at burning on the front, but you don't see anything on the back. And if you think about like a real time situation for that one, that's the time that the firefighters have to go in your building and get you out. And there are like what we call different ratings for this product. So there are products that can withstand 1 hour. There are others that can do it for 2 hours. So that's the magic of when you think about customer insights, that's what we can deliver. It's like, if somebody needs 3 hours, like we need to uncover that they need that. So that's my job. And then my engineer or my R&D person goes and figures out a way to deliver on what the customer is telling us that they need.
Cool. Great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Other questions from our students or teachers or counselors or whoever's in here?
No, ma'am.
All right. Well, if you guys will, I know we've got, I think like 3 minutes left in class. If you still have a question and you're just nervous about asking it, you can always put it in the chat. I'm going to put in the chat a little survey if you guys will fill this out for me, and I'll put it on the screen too. But while we've got Ms. Salgado in here, if you have any other burning questions, I have one more like while they're doing this. So like obviously the pandemic has kind of changed like how people do things for a lot of jobs and obviously for school. Could you tell us like what that looks like in your job? Did it change anything at all? And if so, like how did it change?
Yeah, so for us, a couple, like for me personally, my company was more traditional probably than others. So I used to go to the office 5 days a week, but then because of the pandemic, I think I've had like 4 months where I didn't go to the office one time. And then we started going to the office twice a week since probably late summer of last year, because the government deemed construction business to be essential business for the country. So then we were okay going back to the office. So what we're doing is some teams go to the office some days of the week and some others go other days of the week. So I go Monday and Wednesday to the office. And then the other thing that was pretty big impact is that if you think about kind of that fire video that I just showed you, usually when we have to showcase our products, we used to travel to the place where the build is being built and do tests of construction with the engineers and the architects just to make sure that they can see how it works. But now we have to rely more on FaceTime, and we have to rely more on like doing videos and sending that to them, because in a lot of places you can still travel and show these. And the other piece is for my own research or my own conversations with people, I usually had to do it one-on-one, and I can sit next to the person, or I can have big groups of people, kind of like the size of your classroom right now, and we can all sit on a table and talk about it. But right now I have to do all of that like how we're doing our conversation today via Zoom, which is a little bit more complicated because a lot of the workers that work in the construction industry, they don't have access to internet or they don't have a laptop at home. So we have to Zoom on the phone when they have signal. So it makes it a little bit more complex to try to find the people that we want to talk to.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, things that we have all been learning how to do, how to change things up. I guess, yeah, we've still got a little bit of time. So what do you think is the best part about your job?
The best, well, I mean, I can say everything, but I think the best part about my job is for my company, because my company has a bunch of, like, as you can imagine, in construction, it's a bunch of engineers who are super, super smart, and they create all of these products. But my job is to say, is the product that we are creating something that people want? So bringing that perspective from the marketplace to my company, that is the favorite part of my job, because even though I am paid by my company, my job is to represent my customers. So it's a little bit different, because it's kind of like if you are brothers or sisters, like think about like you are talking on behalf of your brother or your sister, and that's kind of what I get to do on a daily basis. It's just that I do it for my customers.
Yeah, very cool. Let's see, what, if any, like advice would you give to students to find a career that they enjoy?
Oh, that is difficult. So I would say, I think that what you guys are doing today, like listening to people and say, oh, maybe I hate that. What Anna is saying, that sounds good for her, but not for me. I think that's okay. Not being afraid to say, I don't think that that's what I want to do. And if you have interest in learning more about me or somebody else, say, hey, like, what does these people do? Like go on LinkedIn, like go on YouTube. Like, I don't know if like you ever like watch HGTV and see like Chip and Joanna Gaines, like, and if you find yourself like super interested in that, try to investigate more about it and see what you like. So I would say, don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to be honest with yourself. I know it's scary because like, so for example, when I was in your shoes, my dad wanted me to be an engineer. And I remember even like enlisting in school for like engineering. And I'm like, in the back of my heart, I knew I hated it. And I remember going too far to the point where I was already registered in college. And I went to my dad and I'm like, I just don't want to do that. So like, don't let yourself get there, and be honest with yourselves.
I think that's a great point, a good final point to end on. Yeah, our bell just rang, so our students are leaving, but yeah, if anybody had any last minute questions, feel free to stick them in the chat and we can get some answers to you later.